Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. Samantha Martin completed her bachelor's in psychology from Endicott College in 2010, then went on to receive her master's in social work from Simmons College in 2013. Samantha has been practicing behavioral social work for over 10 years and is very passionate about her work. Samantha's extensive background includes being an individual therapist at an outpatient clinic in Boston, Massachusetts, before serving as the executive director overseeing 200 plus clients. Prior to opening Martin Wellness Group, Samantha worked as an individual therapist in a private group practice. Samantha is currently based out of the seacoast of New Hampshire and offers telehealth services for therapy to clients who reside in New Hampshire or in Massachusetts. As a licensed independent clinical social worker, Samantha will provide you with teletherapy counseling that fosters the process of healing and helps you cope with life's challenges. Samantha specializes in working with adults, couples, and adolescents struggling with anxiety, life adjustment disorders, infertility, postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, and depression. You will learn to identify coping skills and how to manage your emotions. Samantha believes no two people are alike and will adapt to the individual needs of her clients. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to tackle the big topic of postpartum mental health with you and get, a therapist's side and point of view on all of the things that go along with that. So thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
And yeah, do you want to kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself and, how you got into this field of work and, what types of things you provide to the community?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been a therapist now for over 11 years, which is scary to think about. I got my master's in social work. So I'm actually licensed clinical independent social worker, and I have my own group practice. And we focus on one of our specialties. One of our biggest specialties is maternal mental health, and a lot of that is PMAD. So, all sort of different anxiety and mood disorders kind of related to the pregnancy timeframe, after pregnancy, and a little bit about why I landed in this specialty is after I had my first daughter, she's almost 5.5 now. I definitely went through some postpartum depression without actually realizing it. And some
Right.
people might think that's funny because I'm a therapist and I should
Right.
recognize the signs and things like that. But it wasn't until several months in where I was like, wow, I think that I need to make some big changes here. And so I did that, and I can talk more about that kind of on the other end. But it really helped me realize that if I'm not recognizing this, then I'm sure so many other mothers are also not recognizing this. So
Yeah.
that became something that I was really passionate about. And I started my private practice then, that first year postpartum with my daughter. So I kind of made a big change, but I went for it and focused on that specialty, and as well as infertility and loss and miscarriage. I also struggled with infertility before my daughter was conceived. So those are really big things that I'm passionate about. And I think that it all kind of plays into each other. I have a lot of clients who will have an underlying kind of undiagnosed anxiety disorder, function well, function really well, then start to try to conceive, maybe have some issues, maybe have some miscarriages, struggle in that area, and then get pregnant, and then a lot comes up for them. And so those are some of my favorite clients where I can really work with them through infertility, pregnancy, conception, all of that, and the postpartum, time frame. That is really something that's special just kind of, helping people through a really big time in their life that
Yeah.
is game changing.
Right. And I feel like it's such a topic that people like don't talk about much anymore. Like I feel like we're
Hmm.
starting to talk about it again a little bit more and trying
Yep.
to break the stigma, but maybe that's just because we're in that realm. Um,
Hmm.
but it is. It's one of those things people really don't talk about, that struggle to conceive. People, oh, you have the
Yes.
baby blues. We don't really talk about,
Yep.
mental health stuff. Although, yes, it's starting to come up, on the news and on different things more
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
But there's so much to it. And I think the biggest thing that I talk with a lot of people about is that I think people just truly don't know the difference between, what's quote unquote normal and what
Hmm.
is, something where, maybe you should be seeking some support and some help. Um,
Yeah.
and, what
Yeah.
does that support and help look like?
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of tell everybody a little bit about the difference between what, maybe a baby blues or a
Yes.
postpartum, situation might look like compared to a
Yes.
full-blown depression?
Yeah, and I think that that's great that you bring that up because I think a lot more people have heard of like the baby blues, and people will say, to maybe somebody else who might say that they're feeling kind of sad or struggling after having a baby, they'll just kind of like, oh, it's the baby blues. That's normal. That happens. It'll resolve on its own. Things like that. And it is normal. Actually, 60 to 80% of new moms will experience the baby blues. And that's mainly due to the hormone changes, the lack of sleep. That really takes a toll. But that'll kind of naturally resolve itself in the first 2 weeks. And so that's kind of one of the biggest differences. If some of your symptoms are lasting much longer than that, that's definitely something to kind of take a look at with either your OBGYN or your primary care or working with a therapist. I love kind of collaborating sometimes too. That's really helpful. And I work with a lot of doulas as well who will be working with, patients ongoing for several months after, and then refer them to me like, okay, this is actually crossed the line to something else. And so it's important that we look at, you know, how long someone's symptoms are lasting, the onset of the symptoms, so that we can kind of figure out the severity of them, the duration, and what's actually happening here. So, one in
Right.
seven women will experience perinatal depression as well. And so, that's actually like a lot more than people might think.
Right.
So one of the biggest indicators, the differences between the baby blues and sort of something more, is kind of the duration of those symptoms.
That
So,
timeline, yeah.
yeah. So I think that at most OBGYN follow-ups around two weeks or 6 weeks, they are kind of screening for some of that.
Right.
And they're also doing that at baby well visits as well. So hopefully with more people kind of asking these questions and screening for things, we can kind of see, what are the differences? How can we get more people the help that they need? Because as you know, the first couple of months is a lot,
Yeah.
and
And I think a big part of it too is, we know there's baby blues or that postpartum depression aspect, but there's other parts to it too, right? So postpartum anxiety is a really big one. So I see a lot of
Mhm.
people don't realize the things that they feel may be, symptoms or identification markers for,
Mhm.
different mood disorders. So like for example, I find a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, I'm always so nervous when my baby goes to sleep and like I can't sleep because I'm staring at them sleeping," right? And like
Mhm.
to an extent, yes, that's understandable. It's brand new, but at the same
Right.
time, if that's disrupting your sleep and your ability to
Functioning your sleep.
function,
Yep.
then
Yep.
that can definitely be a really good sign that you may
Mhm.
have some postpartum anxiety or
Yeah.
something going on.
Absolutely. Not treating a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, PMAD, can, increase, and I see this a lot in my practice, it can increase relationship issues,
Right.
isolation, even drug use, unemployment. This can really change your life. This isn't something to ignore at all. It's definitely this is real. And I think now people are definitely starting to say, okay, this is actually something real. This isn't just like a mom who's stressed, because I
Right.
think that was the case for, the previous generation.
Right.
Um, and it's so much more. And the lack of sleep that we talked about before is huge. And I'm sure you do this with a lot of your clients as well, but kind of coming up with the postpartum plan is huge. I think you have one
Yeah,
that you
I've got
kind
a
of give
workbook that
out.
people
Yep.
use. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
PSI
But it
has one
is
as well. That's
so
really
great.
helpful too. Yeah, just figuring out like who's gonna, um, maybe walk the dog or cook or clean or get groceries, things in those really early weeks that a mom
Yeah.
really can't do. She's recovering physically. If she's breastfeeding, she's kind of stuck to that schedule. And even if she's not, like, there's a lot going on. So having a plan, I always love to kind of set that, with my clients, and also managing our expectations. Everyone kind of fantasizes and, talks about, oh, the newborn baby, like they're so cute, whatever. But let's manage the expectation around that, because you might not feel that way. You might not feel attached to your baby right away. There's so much that can go on. So I'd love to get clients into treatment while pregnant, ones that may have never had anxiety before, too, ones that are just scared for what's going to happen after. Let's talk
Right.
about how this is going to impact your relationship, how this is going
Mm-hmm.
to impact your self-care, your own identity, and really those expectations again. And let's game plan. Like, if we're noticing X, Y, and Z in our kind of mind, what are we going to do about that? Who are we going to call on? What are we going to do? And kind of having the support of a therapist who can understand you while pregnant and then help after, and you already have that relationship established, is huge too. So I'm always urging women to seek help, even if there's not something wrong, just to have that extra bit of support, because it can feel really isolating after too. And I'm sure you see that when you're working with all of your new moms as well.
Yeah, it is. And I think that there's so much to it. Like, I think that the point that you just brought up of like, sometimes you may not feel so connected to them right away is like so
Mm-hmm.
huge. Like, there is so much change happening. I was just talking to a client the other day about how, life is different. And like, now you have to put this other human being's thoughts and needs
Yeah.
before your own. And I've
Mm-hmm.
said it once, I'll say it a million times here and with clients, but like, when you have a newborn baby, it's like this unhealthy relationship because they're taking and taking and taking and taking, and you're barely getting a smile out of them for the first little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to, you know, communicate with your partner to help support one another,
Right.
and identify, that it is okay that you might, envy your baby a little bit, or you
Mm-hmm.
might
Be
grieve your
jealous,
previous self,
resent.
or be
Yep.
jealous that your
Mm-hmm.
partner can't breastfeed and that you're up like being tethered to the baby. That's yes, it's normal, but that doesn't mean, or it's common, but that doesn't mean that it has to be normal or it has to be your life. Like you can still, find support and find ways to navigate that in a better way that might work better for you, right?
Absolutely. And I
And
think
what,
it's so important to talk to your partner about some of these things that might happen, especially if it's your second baby and you went through this with your first,
right?
you will recognize the signs earlier. You'll know kind of
Yeah,
what's happening and what you want to do about it. But with that first baby, it can feel really, really scary. And having a therapist too, like to say some of these like inner thoughts that you are afraid to say, maybe to
yep,
your partner or your mom or one of your best friends, is so helpful. I've had so many clients tell me things that they're like, I feel shame because of this, and really having the space in this non-judgmental way to process that and process how normal that can be for a lot of moms, but no one talks about that. No one's posting
right.
that on Instagram.
No,
Today I resented my baby for X, Y, and Z. Today I wanted to divorce my husband, whatever it was. No one's putting that on social media. They're putting out the best moment, that moment where it is nice and it is peaceful and this baby is sleeping on you, and that feels so incredible. Um, but no one's posting some of those real things. So having the space to kind of really talk about that, one on one, alone, no judgment, is really awesome.
yeah. And now what types of things are you suggesting, or, if someone's listening and they may think that they have this kind of, they might have a mood disorder of some type or are worried about having this type of thing happen,
Yeah.
postpartum. Obviously we suggest trying to find some sort of a therapist, whether it be you or reaching out to you to get connections, or me, I'm happy to
Yep.
kind of connect
Yeah.
people. But, what types of things or stuff can people practice at home, or do
Mm-hmm.
you suggest to your clients that that
Yeah.
help them kind of, work through some of this process. Because obviously it's not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. And I think postpartum mood disorders, people don't realize can last for longer than
Yes.
this quote unquote postpartum period, right?
Absolutely. It can be actually, which might surprise some people, it could start at conception through 5 years. And I think that that really shocks people because people don't have as much education on it. And so to hear 5 years, like that sounds surprising. But I see a lot of clients who come in, when their first or second is around a year and a half, and they're really starting to feel some of these symptoms then. So yeah, it is not just in the first 3 months or whatever after having
Right.
a baby. And I have a lot of clients who are really surprised about how anxious they are while pregnant. Not just the ones who've struggled with infertility and loss before that, but
Hmm.
someone who again like might have gone on having like kind of this undiagnosed anxiety and then gets pregnant and it's like amplified. So one of the things that I always kind of would tell someone, either a friend or someone who's interested in maybe seeing a therapist or anyone listening, if you feel like you might have something more going on, reach out to someone that you trust, whether that
Yeah.
be your partner, a friend, your OBGYN, because you might be seeing them, after whatever, your
Right.
primary care, or even your little one's doctor as well. Ask them, is this normal? Is this something I should, look into a little bit more? Ask them if they have a screening. And that might kind of just start that conversation for you. And I feel like if someone will do that with somebody who they trust, that feels better than
Yeah.
saying, you need to find, a new person to talk to about this right away. Like that scares people. It
Yeah.
scares people even to reach out to a therapist. I always say in my intake, I'm like, I am a stranger and I am going to ask you a lot of vulnerable questions. And this might feel uncomfortable. Like, even if you need a break, just tell me. But some people are really scared to make that first step because of
Hmm.
how, scary it can be. So if there's someone in your life that you can reach out to that you feel like you trust, start talking about it, number one. Then figure out what is going on here and do you need to do something more about it. I always
Right.
also suggest that clients see their primary care provider to rule out if there's anything else going on. A lot of women may not know, but during your pregnancy, your thyroid may change. It might go back. It might change in the first trimester and then go back in the second trimester. A lot of women don't know that it could actually not go back, and you might need medication after. So I always like, and some of those symptoms, anxiety, brain fog, things
Hmm.
like that, can be very similar to a PMAD. So I'm always wanting clients to kind of rule out any other medical reason for their symptoms. I think that's really helpful in the beginning of therapy. So I'm always kind of referring my clients to their primary in addition to seeking a therapist so that they can just double check, is this something medical? Checking on their vitamins. Are you deficient in something? Iron, vitamin D, B12, things like that. And once we have some definitive answers, talking to your primary care again about some supplements that might be really helpful. Magnesium is great for sleep and stress. A lot of women don't know that they could be deficient in magnesium. Vitamin D is really helpful. B12 for your brain and energy. B6 is also amazing for anxiety and depression. Also, really good for someone with PMDD. So, talking to your doctor about some of those natural supplements to try, talking to your doctor about if you need medication, and part of that is what is the severity of your symptoms?
Right.
How intensely is this impacting your functioning? Are you completely dissociated from reality? Are you
Hmm.
able to do some day-to-day tasks, things like that? One of the biggest foundations I feel like for my postpartum clients, or even my pregnant ones, is to make sure that you are getting as much sleep as possible. And this is a difficult one. This is one that my clients will fight me on. Like, I just had a baby. That's such an expectation that I can't meet. Okay, but how do we make it a little more possible? I'm not expecting that now you're going to have 8 to 10 hours of amazing sleep. No, but were you having 3 hours? Could we get you to four? And how do we do that? Could your
Right.
partner take the first shift and you take the second? So at least you
Yeah.
get a big chunk. Could we go to bed an hour earlier? Talking about your sleep hygiene, what does that look like? Are you on your phone until the last second and you're getting terrible sleep?
Right.
Are you, a lot of moms love at the end of the day that quiet time where they can kind of scroll their phone, but are you scrolling for 2 hours when you could have been sleeping?
Right.
So taking a look at the sleep hygiene. So sleeping is definitely really, really important. Eating healthy. And that doesn't mean that you need to go on like a diet.
Right.
I know a lot of mothers who are breastfeeding, they're thirsty and they're hungry. It takes a lot for your body to kind of produce that. So I'm just saying, let's just take a look at what we're eating and can we make some better choices? Because that's really going to be helpful. So
Yeah.
sleeping as much as we can, eating healthy, and definitely the exercise component as well. And I actually like to kind of call it movement more than exercise because I
Yeah.
think exercise can feel really intimidating, especially for a new mom. Like,
Right.
I feel so out of shape. I haven't done anything. All I'm asking is, where do we start small? Can we start with a 20-minute walk for you and the baby? Can we start with some bars, some light weights, and it's really accessible at home now. You could jump on YouTube, Google it, and, pull up any sort of quick 20-minute at home sort of movement. And that will really kind of help shift some of the mindset, and decrease your anxiety, increase your endorphins. So that is definitely a huge one. Again, in my practice, I talk to my clients a lot about, can we pick one small obtainable goal a day that makes us feel a purpose outside of baby,
I love that.
something that helps us kind of identify with who we are, because our identity is changing from
Right.
who we were and who we are now. So, and it's hard to figure that out too. You're like, well, who am I? So let's explore that. And that's something that we would do. So one small obtainable goal a day, that could be a shower. That could be reading 20 minutes of the book you wanted to do. That could be the 20-minute exercise. So coming up with something that you can kind of do for yourself and not just coming up with what it is, but how we're going to make it possible.
Right.
And part of that is talking to your partner. Okay, like, I really need, when you come home at 6 o'clock, I need to leave whatever is happening and know that you have it and go in the other room for an hour to do whatever I need, or 20 minutes, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
a lot of clients aren't always really feeling like they can ask for that, especially if the dynamic is that they're kind of staying at home right now or they're on
Right.
maternity leave. You're still allowed to ask for that. And so we work on, in treatment, kind of like gaining your self esteem and your confidence to know that you're worth that. You're worth asking your partner for the 20 minutes that you need. And a lot of partners, sometimes they're really like, oh, sure, go. And they're surprised that they felt like they couldn't. So communication is definitely key, asking for what you need. And so those are some of the things that we kind of talk about in treatment.
I love that. I like think that that's so true. So many people are afraid and paternity leave and partner leave has been better, but for a lot of people, it's still very, very minimal. So,
I know.
after a week or two, or I've
Yep.
had one that had just a couple days,
Yes.
especially depending on the work that your partner does, right? So they're not home
Mm-hmm.
for very much. So them going to work, yeah, you may not want to wake them up in the middle of the night because you feel bad
Yep.
that they need to sleep for work the next day. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you can't then ask them to do the 6 a.m. feed so you can get an
Yes.
extra hour, or
Yes.
ask them to hang out with baby and watch over the stove so nothing burns while you go
Mm-hmm.
take a shower for, 30
A
minutes.
100%. I feel like
Yeah,
there's lots of little pockets where people can make some small changes, that will make a big difference. But
right.
it feels intimidating to kind of go in and ask for X, Y, and Z or completely change things up. I think too, knowing that it will get better is
Yes.
really nice too. Kind of having that hope for, I'm going to work through this and things are going to get better. But sometimes it gets worse before it gets better.
Right.
But really, only the individual can identify that I'm not feeling like myself and I need to do something about that.
Yeah.
And people can, around the new mom, can say, like, are you sure you're okay? You've kind of been acting, whatever. But only that mom is going to really kind of take the next step. So it's nice if a partner can encourage it. And how can I help? How can I get you there?
Yeah.
But it is hard. And I think that a lot of new moms feel embarrassed about it. Why am I sad when I just had a new baby?
Right.
Especially the ones who have struggled with infertility. This is all I ever wanted. And now it's here and it's real and it's not feeling how I thought it was going to. And then that's, again, talking about, well, what were your expectations?
Yep.
Were they something that was manageable or were they a complete fantasy? This is not a vacation.
Absolutely. I love that you said, it's not forever too, because I think that's so huge. And,
Hmm.
when it comes to sleep specifically, like you were saying, I think I've said it to clients before, you may need to go to bed at 7 o'clock every night because that's when the baby
Yep.
goes to bed for a little
Yep.
while. And like, that's not a forever thing, but that means you're going to
Right.
get 3 hours more sleep than you
Hmm.
would later. Babies do their first long stretch, their longest stretch, the first stretch of the night.
Yes.
So, if they're going to bed at 7 and they're getting up at 1, but you're not going to bed until 11, you're
Hmm.
missing out on what could be a really good stretch of sleep.
I know.
So,
And what a difference that could make.
absolutely. And that's not forever, right?
Right.
If babies aren't sleeping through the night by 6 months old, it's possible to be getting them there, because they're not needing it nutritionally at that point. So, and that's to the farthest extent that you could get to, right? A lot of babies sleep through the night before that. So, you know, but giving yourself the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to go to bed at 7 o'clock feels ridiculous, especially when it's still nice outside at 7 o'clock sometimes, or the sun just set during the like lovely months. But it's so true. Sometimes you got to adapt a couple things for a little while, and you might see that it makes a whole bunch of difference.
Right. And I think too, having that mindset, like that you said, this is not forever. But right now, will this really be helpful? Will this really
Right.
benefit me? And I know it's hard because finally the baby's down and there is that silence, and you really want some time either alone with your partner or alone with yourself. And so it's hard to kind of make that call, but really weighing out what's worth it here for this time being. And that could be 2 weeks where you just need that extra 1 or 2,
Yeah.
3 hours of sleep that makes such a big difference and you start to feel better. And then,
Mm-hmm.
you will spend time with your partner after the baby goes to bed. Or if you really want to kind of do it all, do it, but limit it. I
Yeah.
have 1 hour that I'm giving myself, but I really got to be in bed by 8. And this is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
And some of that is asking your partner for help when he comes home or she comes home so that you can go take a shower and do those things then so that you can just sit with your partner or yourself for a half hour and then get to sleep too,
Yeah. Absolutely. I
there's a
love that.
lot that goes on when you're a new mom for sure. And I think it's
Gotcha.
interesting too, that a lot of this starts while you're pregnant, and a lot of women can just think that that's pregnancy too. So I think it's important to kind of start talking to your healthcare provider again there about, is this just pregnancy? Is this something more? And kind of coming up with ways then to what are things that you can do to kind of decrease some of your stress, decrease some of your anxiety, so that you're in a better spot for when baby comes, using that pregnancy time wisely for sure.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Now, do you have any other tips that people could be doing at home besides, working on communicating with their partners and talking to different people that are close to them? Do you have any like tips or tricks of things that you suggest to parents to kind of like help them slow down throughout the day or, help them to, lower or decrease like anxieties or things like that?
I try to encourage parents to be present in the moment, which is really, really difficult because our mind is always racing. But when our mind is racing and we're overstimulated, we're increasing our cortisol, and it's actually harder to kind of decrease stress when we're doing that. When we're sitting with our baby and we're thinking about all the other things that we have to do, it's hard to kind of calm down. So I'm always trying to encourage parents, sit with them, be present in that moment, set a timer for yourself if you need. If you want to do 20 minutes of playing with the baby and then kind of set them up in a safe spot for 20 minutes, so that you can go switch the laundry and do things then. That
Yeah.
feels more scheduled and organized. And that'll kind of help your brain kind of get into that routine and again decrease some of that cortisol that can just kind of happen when we're overstimulated. And it's hard, especially if there's, if this is your second child and there's a toddler running around, it is very difficult to kind of find those moments of calm and peace. I will also encourage parents to, or moms, when their babies are napping. I'm not kind of someone that's like sleep when the babies sleep because I know that you want to kind of have alone time too in the house.
Right.
I encourage clients to just lay there in your bed for an hour, just vegging out and doing whatever you want while the baby naps, and just having some time to yourself too, whether that be binging reality TV, journaling, meditating, just an hour while they nap, to just have zero expectation of anything. Don't run and do the dishes, don't run and do the laundry, all those things that are going to be waiting there, you'll do after, or you'll ask your partner for help with. But if you need that hour to just decompress, take it. Manage the stress around that. Are you kind of creating this narrative in your head that that means you're a bad mom if you lay there for an hour? What is it about the fact that you won't sit and relax when you can? So we're
Right.
always kind of looking underneath the surface in sessions and just trying to see kind of what else is going on. But a lot changes after you have a baby. Your body, who you are, who you want to be, who you think your partner is, your sex life, all of it. So give yourself some grace. Understand that this is game changing, and being a mom is incredible, but not every day is, and not every moment is. I have a lot of clients who will feel guilt and shame. So, talking about that, and where is that coming from? And does this have anything to do with, again, that expectation of what you thought you were going to be like as a mom versus what the reality of being a mom is? It's really hard. It's hard to make all of these decisions. So, splitting up the tasks, having your partner make decisions on X, Y, and Z, and you do the other stuff, and realize getting to this point where you can be confident enough to realize that we don't have to do all of this on our own. We were actually not meant to do this on our own.
Right.
It's a lot of moms are working as well. So it's not fair to put everything on one person. So I love to encourage my clients to get a doula and get that help and get a mother's helper and get a date night in, something that's going to make them feel like themselves, whatever that is. I also just love for clients to show up from themselves in therapy. I'm always saying, like, you made the time for yourself this week, and that's just amazing. So
Yeah.
just being present in some of it, because it's
Right.
really chaotic.
Right. I love that. That's all such amazing advice, and it's so true because it is hard to, set aside time
It
aside.
literally takes a village.
Yes, it does. It
I'm always
does.
sending my clients, sleep consultants as well, because you don't know how to get your baby to sleep unless you're trained in it. There's
Right.
actually, techniques behind it and certain things. And
Right.
I didn't know sleep consultants existed until I was transitioning my daughter to one nap. And that was beyond brutal. And someone overheard me and she was like, I'm a sleep consultant. I would love to, help you out. And I didn't know what that was. And it was game changing. And
Yeah.
so from then on, every single one of my clients, I'm like, you need a sleep consultant. Just that is huge. Once the baby is sleeping through the night, you can get a bit more of your life back.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I appreciate all the things that you said because I think they are all so true. And I think people are gonna, feel reassured hearing that they're not alone in those things. So thank you. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to share with everybody before we wrap up here?
I don't think so. I think one of the most important things, though, is make sure mom is getting some self care. I love the postpartum plans as well. If anyone takes anything from this, get a postpartum plan and a therapist and figure out what your plan is going to look like. Talking about sleep, the expectations around different visitors, roles, meals, feeding the baby, the self care for mom. Conversations with your partner about expectations once we're all home, who's doing what, especially if your partner doesn't get any, time off as well, which is unfortunately too common these days.
Right.
But just, yeah, and asking for help. If you feel like something is not right, ask for help. The worst thing that could happen is you're in the same situation you were before, but you're most likely
Absolutely.
not going to be. You're most likely
Right.
going to make a change and get some help and feel better.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys can check out all
Absolutely.
of
This
her
was amazing.
information. Oh, thank you. You guys can check out all of her information below. I'll have, links to websites and whatnot so you can reach out and get the support that you guys need. But yes, thank you for joining me and hopefully we'll have you back soon.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.